Welcome, listeners. This is Still Here, Still Talking. I'm Karen,
And I'm Julie.
and today we're going to talk about to speak or not to speak. Have there been times that you felt like you couldn't say something or that you wanted to say something and you just couldn't? Or did somebody stop you from talking? So we're going to talk about these kinds of things today.
And Karen, let's hear your story first.
I go first today. Yay.
You go first, my friend.
Well, one of the things that I have found through the years is, of course, is is the giving and the receiving of communication. Uh, I have found through my experiences of when to give it and when to receive it, or not to receive it, or
Mm,
not to give it. For example, my story here is one time I was working for this guy, and I was working out of his home. The office was in his home, and his girlfriend called one day, and they had been going out for a while. And she just started talking to me about how she was going to leave him. And I'm just sitting there thinking, I don't know why this girl is just telling me all of this. And I finally ended the communication, stopped her from talking, but I was, and I wasn't being rude or anything. But she wanted me to tell him that she was breaking up with him. And I didn't say anything. I just said, well, have a nice day. Goodbye. And I didn't say anything to the boss. And then it was about maybe 3 months later, she comes to the house with him and they were getting ready to go to dinner. She looked at me, I looked at her, and the boss just kind of picked up that there was something going on because we each had these kind of funny looks.
mm,
And so they left. Then when they came back, he had already dropped her off at home and he came back to the house and he sat down, grabbed a glass of wine, gave me a glass, and said, I got to ask you a question. I said, what's that? And he goes, how come you didn't tell me? I said, tell you what? He goes, that she called you and told you that she was breaking up with me. And I said, I looked at him and I said very clearly, it was not my communication to give. And he said, you're right. It wasn't. And I go, yeah, it wasn't. So, another part of the story, another friend. So that was
mm.
about giving. So I did not
Yeah,
give the communication. She gave it to me, but I didn't pass it on. So
yeah.
then another
It
story is about another friend who was with me in a car one day, and she just was getting so excited. She wanted to tell me something, and I said, okay. And she said, she preempted with, well, a friend of mine told me this and I want to tell you, but she told me not to tell anybody. And I turned and looked at her and I said, then don't tell me. And she just was upset. She was like, but I want to tell you. I want to tell you. I said, please do not tell me communication that was given to you by someone else who asked you not to tell anyone else, that they expressed to you this information in confidence. So please don't do it. And she didn't. I wouldn't allow her. But that's my story about how I refuse to receive communication.
You're
So
so
do you
good,
have,
Karen.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you're so good. I mean, you've helped me along our journey together, the 44 years.
Oh, well, thanks.
You're welcome. You've told me those stories, and it's really helped me. So I really appreciate that. Yeah, I have a story, a little bit different story. As far as again goes way back. I always go back. I have to go back.
Way back
Oh,
when I was a
but
little one.
in order to go forward, right? I go back to go forward, but it's really powerful. And as Karen and I were talking about today, I got a little bit more insight on it too. It's kind of a complicated story, but it all makes sense now as we were talking about it. And when I grew up and my mother got divorced, and I've shared this before several times in the podcast, I'm up front with all this. She was when she divorced my first father, there were five of us kids. When she divorced my first father, you know, I don't know, there was a lot of she told us a lot of things about him that really wasn't positive. It was kind of negative. Hearing it over and over, and it was she gave me a gift though later on, which I'll get into it. And a few years later, she married my stepdad. And it's kind of, I don't know why it ended up like this, but I fell in love with my stepdad. I always felt really safe with him. So, on one
Mm,
hand, my mother created this kind of hostile vision of my dad. Um, maybe that's a strong word, but um, and then when she married my stepdad, I felt so safe with him, and so my mother gave me the gift of letting me have my own relationship with my stepdad without interfering. So I
mm.
had both sides of a relationship from a dad and a stepdad. And the gifts, the two gifts I got from that was I was able to, as a mother, went on and had four kids, three different dads. I hate to say it, but I'm honest here, I'm honest here. And with the complication of stepdads and dads, and I learned the gift is I didn't want to pass any of that. I didn't want to communicate any of that to my kids. I wanted them to have the relationship based on the relationship, how they felt with each one of their fathers. And and to this day, I'm so happy that I've been able to pretty much successfully do that by letting them form their own relationships based on their own relationships with their fathers.
That's a beautiful story, and thank you, Julie, for being vulnerable with that one. Yeah, your mom gave you a beautiful gift. The story that you told is that with your stepdad, she gave you a foundation on how to have the relationship with the children's fathers, your children today, with their fathers and the stepdads that they have. And
Mhm.
then with the relationship with your dad, unfortunately, with the negativity that she gave you, but about him, yet that in its silver lining, right, of that
Yes.
type of treatment was that she fostered in you that concept that you would not give your children any type of negativity about their fathers or even the stepdads. And you're very good about that. Through the years, I have certainly witnessed that you are very good about keeping only positive comments in the relationships. And that's an important point to make is that when we have different relationships, our communication greatly affects the others in the group, whether they're stepdads or stepchildren or foster children or friends or coworkers. The relationship, the communication is greatly affected by the communication. And so, yeah, so thank you for sharing that. And my story about my mother having communicate, telling me things about my father after he had passed. She was telling me many things that were just very negative. I mean, I know she was very upset and very angry about the loss, about him having passed. That does happen with many individuals, especially spouses that get, into anger. And she was very much stating a lot of negative comments to me. And I finally had to say to her one day, I was like, Mom, you need to stop. You need to stop telling me all these negative comments. And then she yelled at me, you don't know your father like I did. And I said, You're right. I don't know him like you did. He was your husband, but he was my father. And I
Mm.
had a completely different relationship with him. And I do not want to hear the negative comments that you are expressing to me about him as your husband. I said, Because you couldn't have asked for a better father for your children. He was great. But I don't
Yeah.
know anything about how he was as a husband. I don't know, you know. And she stopped. And it was several years later that she actually came back to me and said, Thank you, that I made her stop. I requested her to stop. Didn't make her, but I requested her to stop. And then she said, Yes, your father was a good man. He was a good father. And I said, Yes, he was. So yeah, sometimes we have to take control of the
Mm.
communication that we receive and that we give, and we need to be aware that uh, that we the negative. aspects of communication are impactful. They can reach out far beyond to the recipient that we are, sending the communication to. We have to be aware of that. So,
So true. Things trickle, you know.
yeah.
Things trickle, and I, it's important. I'll speak for myself that I try and not trickle the stuff down to hurt other relationships because really
Hmm.
a relationship should be from one person to that person. That's the
Right.
relation that we all have our own relationship with whoever that would be one on one.
That's
And
right.
nothing should get in the way to make that change.
That's right. And you got a good story about that with a friend that you had an experience with that really involved a lot of communication, a lot of negative communication, and it was in a group. So why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, so a friend, we kind of like there was a group of us and we'd go on different things every week, once a month, whatever. And, the gossiping started. And I took part in it. I'm not going to say I did not take part in it. Um, I had to look at my own part. I have to look at my own, my own stuff. And so the gossiping kind of started and then it kind of dwindled down and then we all started getting really close. And then it was more like we were just supporting each other, which was beautiful. But then some of the gossip kept going and it was hard not to get pulled into it. But it ended up it ended up finally, unfortunately the whole group broke up. And as far as going on journeys together. Like I still had a lot of all the friends, and this one friend, this is hard because I don't want to put blame on just one person because it's never just one person, right? It never is
Mm,
just.
right.
Um, but the group ended up breaking up, and then socially. But then I would run into some of the friends, and then they would be telling me about this one particular person in the group and saying what she was saying about me, which in turn now they're gossiping about her. And it was just this whole circle of mess. So
Mm,
I tried to stop avoiding the whole group because it wasn't healthy at that point. I never left feeling good about myself or what was going on. And Karen, you had a part of all that.
yeah. Not the gossiping part. I
No,
wasn't
not,
in
I'm
that group.
sorry.
I wasn't in
I
that
knew I knew
group.
you'd explain yourself out of that. So thank you.
Uh, but yeah, I was friends with the person that you're speaking about, and I became friends with her through you. And I had actually never, met her, but we became friends talking on the phone as well as on the social media platform, Facebook and text messages. So yeah, and that went on for a couple of years while this was all going on. And it was interesting, like what I just said about, controlling communication and giving and receiving. And
Yeah,
even though I'm best friends with you and I've just met her through you, I kept the communication clean. I didn't talk back and forth. She tried to get me to talk about you and I would not do it. I didn't participate in that. And kudos to you. You never asked me anything about her. So so I kept the friendship going until she opted to to end it, which was okay. People choose, need to do
yeah,
whatever they need to do. But yeah, I didn't want to participate in that type of relationship, so it was okay to let it go. But yeah,
yeah.
kudos to you for not again for not inquiring.
Well, I guess you got me on a good day. No, I'm a work in progress, I'm not perfect by any means.
No, none of
Usually
us are.
Usually pain's a big motivator when something doesn't work for me as far as communicating. I have to look at that because there's something going on with me that I'm not happy with my actions
Mm, hmm.
or how I communicate. And pain is a big motivator for me to step back and look at
Yeah.
my part in things.
Right. And it is for all of us. And I know like with talk about like pain and talk about like
Yeah.
motivators. One of the things that was painful for me when I was growing up is my mother and my grandmother did went 5 years without speaking to each other.
Mm,
I know the reason why, but I won't get into it in this story, in this episode. But they didn't talk. In fact, my grandmother moved away to another location, another city, and
mm,
I visited, my grandmother and grandfather. And when I would be there, they'd ask me about my mother, and I wouldn't talk about her. I would say, "No, I'm not here to talk about my mother. Well, I'm here to visit you." And then when I
mm,
would get home, to my mother's house, then my mother would be, "Well, what did your grandmother say about me?" I would be like, "We didn't talk
yeah.
about you." So this was constant every time I visited, to the point where I finally had to say to both of them individually, I don't want to talk about each other. I'm not here to talk about, what the other is doing or to relay messages. I'm here to visit you. That's all I want to do. And finally that did all calm down. And yes, after 5 years, they were back to talking to each other.
Mm,
But yeah. So yeah, it was painful and to experience that. And then of course I looked at it like what did I, if there was anything I did to contribute to this situation, but in hindsight, there wasn't anything. It was something that when they finally told me what had occurred, then
mm-hmm.
it was, just between them. And yeah, so one of the things with communication is so important to be aware of what communication that you're receiving as well as what you're giving, and that we all have control over what it is that we allow to be to be received as well as what we choose to give to another, and how we interact with our friends, our coworkers, or any social gathering of one person not getting along with the other and not be the conduit, the the pipeline of communication between the two of them. It's like, no, step out of that.
Yeah.
Let them have their own communication. And like you said so well in your story, and Julie, is that, you know, um, that the relationships with communication with with your own stepfather and your father, and then with your children's fathers and stepfathers, that's so important, is to not be the one communicating a story that can create um, bad intentions. Let them develop their own relationships, right?
Right. I love that, Karen. And thank you for your powerful story. Just want to end with this to our listeners. Your stories matter, your voice matters. Reach out anytime. We love to hear from you at still here, still talking at yahoo.com.
Yes, and thank you, listeners, for tuning in. We appreciate you. We are still here, still talking. We're not experts, we're just experienced.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.